Connor, you're up next. Hello.
Hey, I'm here, Bart.
How's it going?
I'm doing all right, sir. How are you?
Pretty good, man. What are you playing out of here?
Okay, so the setup is we're playing 2-5 at Hollywood Casino in Columbus, Ohio.
Okay.
It's a 1K max with a 75% match.
Oh, nice. Love that. So if you get into the game and it's been going, you can buy pretty deep.
Yeah, unfortunately, like we were maybe hour and a half into the game, and it just and stacks hadn't gotten crazy yet. But yeah, I'm sitting there with 1250 effective.
Okay. So 2-5, Hollywood, Columbus. And is straddle or just regular?
Nope, just a regular old 2-5 hand.
Okay. All right, start us off here.
Okay, so I'm raising under the gun with the same hand. I've got the Queen of Clubs and Queen of Diamonds.
Okay, so hero with Queen of Clubs, Queen of Diamonds from under the gun. Okay.
Yep, so I raised that up. The low jack cold calls.
What'd you make it?
Oh, I'm sorry, I made it 15.
Is that the standard open?
Yep, so far. It's still like pretty early in the game. We're filling each other out, but 15 was pretty standard.
Pretty small open. Okay, so low jack calls. Yep.
And then the cutoff, who will be the main villain in the hand. Pretty solid player so far. I don't play much at the casino, but it seemed like he was playing pretty solid, pretty aggressive. He squeezes to 60.
So here at a 15 from under the gun, low jack calls, cut off to 60. Okay.
Yep.
Folds back around to you.
So it folds back to me. I've got some calls here sometimes, but I think because of the field caller, I just am almost always 4-betting here.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I would definitely tend to 4-bet more. So obviously if you open and then it's just the cutoff and there's nobody in between, it's probably primarily a call at the stack depth. But with that dead money in between, I definitely lean towards a 4-bet for sure.
Perfect. So I end up going just 180.
So you go to 3x more. So 15 call 60 to 180. Okay.
And that low jack player ends up folding and the cutoff calls.
Yeah, it's always interesting about the sizing here. I mean, it's not a cold 4-bet like you're the initial opener. You go to 180 if he calls with the dead money out there. The pot's gonna be like 375, and you're gonna have like 1,070, so maybe 3 pot size bets left, something like that. As you do get deeper, you get into this weird scenario where, yes, you can 4-bet more from out of position, but as you get super, super deep, at least from the stuff that we used to do on our top section podcast, we used to do a lot of deep solver work. I'm talking about super deep, like 1,000 big blinds. A lot of times it actually favors a smaller size and to keep the pot a little bit smaller from out of position. I mean, I might go like 200. I don't think it's like criminally small here, but okay. So you go 180 in a call and we're off maybe 200 to 220, maybe 200 to 225. So it looks like that's what I would do. So we're off to about 375 here. Right?
Yep, about 375.
Okay.
Yep, flop comes down 9, really, really dry. It's 9-3-3. It does have 2 hearts.
9 of hearts, 3 of clubs. I'm going to put 3 of hearts. Okay. And you've got queens, no heart. Okay.
Yep, so this is where it just kind of, and considering this player is solid, it really weirded me out. So I bet 125. He doesn't think long, and then he makes it 330.
So just a couple things here about your sizing. Because it's a really, really tight configuration here, I think you are allowed to go definitely larger if we never think that really any 3x or 9-9 is really represented here. Now, maybe he has slivers of 9-9 that might 3-bet call here some of the time, so it's slightly different than like deuce 3-3 or something like that. Now, I know that maybe in the back of your head, though, too, and this is one of the things that sometimes people don't realize is that sometimes like in live poker, there's no 5-betting range at all. So if you sort of quote unquote live node lock the fact that he can also have aces and kings here, then that might reflect in the fact that you're not supposed to go all that large. The other sometimes, I mean, obviously you're supposed to be almost c-betting almost every single board in a 4-bet pod, except like the most textured boards. And you can do that with your sizing with just, almost like 100%. And the other thing that sometimes when you don't have aces, this is a very subtle thing, you can sometimes actually win more money by betting a little bit smaller so that you can get the ace highs to peel. Of course, when you have aces, the chances that the other guy has ace high goes down quite a bit. Now, you don't have, obviously, aces here. Now you go 125, cutoff makes it 330. If you were to call, you would put 630 here in on the flop, and the pot would be just over, I would say, 1,000, and then you're left with about 500. So if you call, you would move to the turn with about a half pot size bet left, right? Is that
Yeah,
right?
and that's kind of I titled this email when I sent it in like Second Street Chicken. It almost feels like if when I make the call here, am I going to get my answer on the turn of whether or not he just has me smashed or he's going to get scared.
I mean, that's a very, very, there's a couple things going on here. Number one, you're almost at a point here. I think it's really close where you could just play this as an all in or fold, and it would be quite a nitty fold. And the reason why that is of course, because you're out of position, your opponent can realize this equity a lot. Like if your opponent is somehow like raising here with a heart draw, if he's competent. So if you go 125 and I go 330 with like king jack of hearts, jack 10 of hearts, something like that, and then you call, I'm taking a card on the turn here with you having a half pot size bet left if you were to just call on a brick, I mean. So if he's competent, he's got to know that, and you sort of allow for a free card to come off. And then sometimes you actually lose the value from a draw that might raise and call because of the pot odds, right? With two cards to come. So there's that. And the other thing too is that if you call only and then like the turn's a brick, like a deuce, you're telling me that you're just going to check fold?
Well,
No, I'm just asking. Is that your plan here?
that was my thought process the whole time, was that if he piles it in, or if I call, he piles it in on the turn. I can't think he has anything else than aces, kings, or nine.
You sure you don't? He never does it with jacks or tens here. The other thing that gets tricky here in this spot is like if you were to jam, do jacks and tens that might be just poking out for a protection raise fold to your jam? Because he's going to get 3-1 coming back over the top if you jam, right? It's going to be
Right.
it's going to be 1,500, 500 for him to call. Although I think I'm a little bit off with the math. Oh, it's right 375. So 660. What do you have about? Maybe you have 600 left. Maybe you have 600 left.
It would leave about seven. Yeah, six, 700.
Okay. So,
yeah.
It would be like 16, 1700, like 600 for him to call.
Spot.
Right. So I don't know if someone's going to raise fold. These are really tough spots. This is a very, very awkward type of scenario here in a spot like this. It's just one of these things though, man, where it's like you're setting up, you're like, well, I'll call and maybe I'll fold if he jams on a brick. And then so you're kind of hoping that he checks the behind on the turn, but then you just sort of let him get like a free card, unless you think you can make up for like maybe you get value from tens or jacks that would otherwise fold to a 3-bet jam on the flop. You know what I mean? On the river.
This to me felt like a completely like player type specific thing. Like if it was like some like okay kind of shitty wreck, then like they're trying to find out where they're at with tens or jacks. But I'd kind of decided that this guy knew what he was doing and knew how tight my range was with a 4-bet from under the gun.
Could you ever just fold?
That's, in hindsight, I think what I would most rather do.
I mean, I'm trying to think about like how egregious that sounds. But
it sounds disgusting.
But if I was up against a competent player here, could I ever just find a fold? Just knowing again that the whole setup of, well, I'm going to fold to a brick on the turn, so I'm hoping he checks it through so that he sort of, and I'm allowing him to realize my equity. Yeah, I mean, I could see all three options, I guess, kind of viable. When I don't know the player, I'll tell you, if I didn't know the player at all, I probably would call and evaluate. But I still think, God, I would have a hard time if the turn's a brick and then he jams 600 into like 1,000. I mean, I can see how I can see the approach of what you're talking about, like calling and then seeing what he does. But if he's a competent player, it's a hard setup. If it's an unknown, maybe I go down that road of call and then possibly make some crazy fold in the turn. But if he's competent, it's really, really tough. So did you call or what?
I did call.
All right. So hero calls. So you make the call 660 on the flop. You already had 375 in there. So it looks like it's 1,035. And you guys have, and you probably have about what, 700 left? Something like that? 550? 740 left? Something like that? Yeah, 740. Okay. So it's a little bit more than I was saying before. So it's actually 3/4. Okay, because I was thinking it was half the pot, but it's actually 3/4. So I actually like your call more because it's you got 3/4 of a pot size bet left. I got ahead of myself for some reason. I did the math wrong. Okay, so you make the call. It's 1,035. Okay.
So the turn is a super brick. It's a 5 of not hearts. It's like a 5 of spades. It doesn't bring in a second flush.
Okay.
Draw.
Yep. And you check, I assume.
Yep. Check it over and snap rip.
Snap rip, huh?
Yeah. And that made me, I kind of made that. I made the decision on the flop that I was planning to fold turn if he jammed.
Mm-hmm.
It was almost really weird to me that he made it as a snap decision. It made me start thinking more ace king of hearts or ace queen of hearts for just a minute.
Yeah, the other thing too, that if I was your opponent, and I think for a good player, because you think about the draws on 933, like in this configuration that have a bunch of equity against you, right? Like what's the one that has the most equity? What's the draw that has the most equity against you on 933 two hearts? What's the draw?
The draw with most equity. I mean, you're ace king of hearts, right?
Right. Ace king of hearts. So obviously you don't have the heart in your hand. Ace king of hearts, ace queen of hearts, I put into the same sort of category. But if I'm your opponent, like against your sizing there, like I'm doing a lot of calling because if I don't think you're releasing a lot of overpairs and it's a 4-bet pot, say I think your 4-betting range is quite polar, especially with a guy in the middle, which it probably is, right? Yeah, maybe you skew towards value, but then you've got some like whatever ace 5, or some sort of bluffs and stuff like that. When you squarely have ace king of hearts, you beat all the bluffs, right? You've got the nut no pair on this board on 933. And then, you're left with overpairs. So if I'm not getting you off of overpairs, then usually the most efficient play for me with ace king of hearts is to call versus your sizing. Unless I think you could have tens or jacks, or I can put you in a shitty spot with queens. So
that's what I thought through. That I would have never played nut hard draw aggressively if I were in his position.
Right. So it kind of maybe leans you more towards he has aces here or kings. Even if he's a competent player, most people don't like come out of their shell and try to move people off of overpairs in 4-bet pots. And the fact that you called also really makes it very, very indicative that you have an overpair. Now, with that being said, if you look at the theory of this, I do wonder if you bet 125 with, say, ace king with the ace of hearts and he goes to 330, you're probably supposed to peel. I don't know if you would have. That's a spot where a lot of live players will under peel, like if they had ace king, right, in a 4-bet pot. You know what I'm saying? So I just think you're skewed towards a lot of overpairs, and he doesn't seem to care all that much, coupled with the fact that for him, ace king of hearts and ace queen of hearts is a lot of calling instead of raising. I can definitely get on board with a fold now.
Well, that's what I do.
Okay.
I fold it face up because I'm a donkey. And I never got a full straight answer. We got friendly like over the next couple hours. And I was like joking around with him. I said, I can't believe you didn't 5-bet me with the aces. And he replied to that. He's like, no, I mean, it wasn't aces, and then he just kind of trailed off. It sounded like he had me, but I never get to find out.
You mean like if he played kings that way?
Kings, I mean, if he says it's not aces, he's either a liar or to me it's kings or pocket nines.
And this is another one too where I often talk about, usually it's from out of position. I sometimes say when you're playing against good competition, you want to take some strong hands and actually call across multiple streets so that you can't just liberally get value bet against. If for some reason I played aces like this and I was your opponent, I'm not sure if I really see the need to raise either. I don't want you to make a hero fold. And if I had respect for you, I would think that you would be, here's the thing, like say I have aces, which like almost like the equivalent of the nuts, right? Because once in a while, like maybe you throw in a 4-bet with 9-9, but I'm never folding, right? So say I just call your 4-bet with aces, I get this texture. With your like SPR, like I don't really I can still get the money in. I might want you to try to barrel me off of a hand like tens or jacks. And then if I think that you effectively can value bet if you were to hit like a king or a queen or something like that when you didn't have it, that's why I think I would probably play aces as a call a lot on the flop too. Not even trying to be balanced, but as what I would call with the ace king of hearts, ace queen of hearts. So it's really hard for me to develop what I would have for a raising range here at the stack depth if I was competent in position in this configuration. But
I felt the same way. I tanked forever against that flop raise because I have 0 hands that do that.
yeah, interesting one. Well, thanks for the call. I appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, Bart.